Some loves never fade. They wait in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, patient enough to withstand years of silence. These loves don't ask for perfection. They ask only for a second chance. And sometimes, in the cruelest twist of fate, they get a miracle. This is a story about a man crying at a grave, pouring out 8 years of loneliness and guilt to cold marble and rain-soaked earth, begging forgiveness from a woman he thought he'd lost forever, not knowing it was empty. But wait a minute. This story started 8 years ago. Abel had met Kate on a Tuesday at Seattle Children's Hospital during a corporate publicity event. She'd been a nurse carrying a crying child, singing some silly song about elephants until the little girl giggled. Kate had glowed with that child's laughter like it was sunlight, and Abel had stared, forgetting he was supposed to be cutting a ribbon. He'd engineered reasons to come back, and for 6 months it had been perfect. Then Singapore happened. Tokyo. Hong Kong. Opportunities to build an empire, and he'd asked her to come with him. "I can't," she'd said, sitting on her worn couch, her hands folded in her lap. "That's your dream, Abel. But it's not mine." "But you love me." "Yes. But sometimes love isn't enough." She'd smiled sadly. So Abel had left, his heart shattered. The engagement ring he'd planned to give her still in his pocket. He'd built his empire across Asia, telling himself she'd be happy with Derek. That he'd made the noble choice. He'd been so catastrophically wrong. Before we continue, amazing shoutouts to Gloria Moore from Illinois, Freedom War Fighter from Utah, and Lillian Carter from Maryland. Thank you for always being here, supporting our channel with in-depth comments. We love you always. Now, let's dive in. The private jet touched down in Seattle just after midnight. Abel Thornton hadn't set foot in this city for 8 years, and he'd sworn he never would again. But death had a way of breaking even the most sacred vows. The news had reached him in Singapore, delivered by his assistant in carefully neutral tones. Kate Ashford found dead in her home. Suspected heart complications. Services to be held Thursday. He'd stood at his office window, 40 stories above the glittering skyline, and felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Kate. Dead. The flight across the Pacific had been endless. He'd sat in the leather seat, untouched scotch warming in his hand, remembering her laugh. The way she'd looked at him that last day, her eyes bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. "I can't, Abel. I'm sorry. I can't." He'd been 28 then, already worth his first 100 million, hungry for more. She'd been a nurse at Children's Hospital, radiant in her scrubs, beautiful in her kindness. He'd wanted to give her the world, but she'd wanted something simpler. Something he didn't know how to be. "Derek asked me to marry him," she'd said softly. "And I said yes." Derek Ashford. Pediatric surgeon. Humanitarian. The kind of man who volunteered at free clinics and built wells in developing countries. The kind of man Abel could never compete with, not where it mattered. So he'd left. Built his empire across Asia and Europe. Told himself she'd be happy. Told himself it was enough that she'd be loved by someone good. He'd been so sure she would be fine. The cemetery was gray beneath a drizzle that seemed to seep into his bones. Abel stood before the fresh grave, expensive suit darkening with rain. Reading the headstone through blurred vision. Catherine Marie Ashford. Beloved wife. Her kindness lives on. "I regret it," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I regret ever leaving you. I regret trusting that you would be fine." The words poured out, raw and desperate. He told her about Tokyo, about the nights he couldn't sleep, about the deals that meant nothing, about how he couldn't really move on, that not a single day passed without him thinking about her. about how he'd checked her Facebook every few months, just to see her smile, to convince himself he'd made the right choice. "I thought he'd take care of you," Abel choked out, falling to his knees in the wet grass. "I thought you'd be happy. I thought—" He couldn't finish. The rain mixed with his tears, and he pressed his forehead against the cold marble, grief consuming him whole. The wake was held at the Ashford estate, a beautiful home in Medina with views of Lake Washington. Abel almost didn't go, but he needed to see it. The life she'd lived, the home she'd made. He arrived late, slipping in quietly. The house was full of mourners speaking in hushed tones, sharing stories of Kate's generosity, her volunteer work, her endless compassion. Derek Ashford stood near the fireplace, accepting condolences with the grace of a practiced performer. He looked appropriately devastated, his handsome face drawn, his expensive suit perfectly tailored. Abel was turning to leave when he saw her. The woman was young, late 20s, maybe 30, with auburn hair and a designer dress that seemed out of place at a funeral. She touched Derek's arm with an intimacy that made Abel freeze. Derek glanced around before leaning down to whisper something in her ear. She smiled. Actually smiled, before catching herself. The interaction lasted maybe 10 seconds. But it was enough. Abel's blood ran cold. He couldn't explain the instinct that made him hire the investigator. Perhaps it was the smile. Perhaps it was the way Derek's grief seemed to sit on him like a well-tailored coat. Perfect on the surface, but somehow not quite right. Or perhaps it was simply that he owed Kate this. One last thing. The investigator's name was Gina Torres, a former FBI agent who specialized in discreet inquiries. She called him 3 days later. "Mr. Thornton, I think you should see this in person." Her office was in a nondescript building downtown. She'd laid out the evidence on a conference table like pieces of a puzzle that formed a picture Abel wished he could unsee. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts. "The woman's name is Lydia Grant," Gina said, her voice matter-of-fact. "Public relations executive. They've been involved for approximately 3 years." 3 years. Abel stared at a photo of Derek and Lydia entering a hotel in Vancouver. Kate would have still been alive, still believing her husband was at a medical conference. "The emotional abuse patterns are textbook," Gina continued, pulling out printed therapy session notes that had been subpoenaed from Kate's doctor. "Gaslighting, isolation, intermittent reinforcement. He'd be cold for weeks, then suddenly shower her with affection, keep her off balance." "She stopped seeing friends," Abel observed, looking at Kate's thinning social media presence. The posts had gone from frequent to sparse over the years. The smiles had started looking strained. Classic isolation tactic. Her hospital colleagues reported that Derek would forget to pass along messages, show up to pick her up early from social events, claim she'd asked him to. Gina's eyes were angry. One nurse said, Kate started apologizing for everything. Apologizing for being 5 minutes late, for ordering the wrong takeout, for existing too loudly. Abel's hands fisted. He remembered Kate as endlessly confident, warm, sure of herself. The woman Gina described was a ghost. "The medical records," he said roughly. Gina pulled them forward. First prescription for anxiety medication came 4 years into the marriage. Depression medication 6 months later. Blood pressure issues started 18 months ago. Her doctor noted significant stress, but Kate refused to elaborate on the source. Because who would believe her? Derek Ashford, who spent his weekends doing charity surgery in underprivileged neighborhoods. Derek Ashford, who gave TED Talks about compassion in medicine. Derek Ashford, who the Seattle Times had called the doctor with a heart of gold. "I have video," Gina said quietly, tapped from their home security system. Derek kept the footage backed up to a cloud server. Probably never expected anyone would access it. She pulled out her laptop, angled it toward Abel. Fair warning. This is hard to watch. The first clip showed Kate in their kitchen, chopping vegetables. Derek walked in, looked at what she was making, and his face twisted with disgust. I told you I don't like bell peppers. I'm sorry, I forgot. You forgot. Like you forgot I had an early surgery tomorrow and need to eat by 6. Like you forgot I asked you to pick up my dry cleaning. Do you even listen when I talk? I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and start thinking. He'd walked out, leaving her standing there, knife trembling in her hand. Abel watched clip after clip, Derek ignoring Kate when she spoke. Derek criticizing her clothes, her hair, her weight. Derek coming home to find her crying and walking past her without a word. Never yelling. Never hitting. Just a systematic, patient destruction of her spirit. In one clip from 2 months before her death, Kate was sitting at their dining table, her hands shaking as she refilled her blood pressure medication. Derek walked past, saw the bottle, and laughed. Maybe if you weren't so dramatic all the time, you wouldn't need those. Kate had flinched like he'd struck her. Abel had to close the laptop. His hands were shaking with rage. There's more, Gina said. Financial records show he was funneling money from his charity foundation, using donations to pay for hotels, jewelry for his mistresses. Kate's name is on the foundation board, but I found emails showing he forged her signature on approval documents. He was setting her up. Exactly. If the fraud had come to light while she was alive, Kate would have been implicated. Her nursing license would have been at risk. Gina leaned back. I think he was planning to divorce her and pin everything on her. Make himself the victim. Abel felt sick. Kate had trusted this man. Married him believing he was good and safe and everything Abel wasn't. And Derek had been so much worse than Abel could ever have imagined. I want everything, Abel said, his voice deadly calm. Every affair, every financial irregularity, every moment of footage showing what he did to her. I want it documented, verified, and ready for the best lawyers money can buy. What are you planning? Justice. Abel stood, his decision made. Kate can't defend herself anymore. But I can, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what Derek Ashford is. We have enough, Gina said. More than enough. Abel nodded, unable to speak. He was thinking about that last day, 8 years ago. The way Kate had touched his cheek, her fingers gentle. You deserve someone who can love you the way you need, she'd said. And I deserve someone I can be enough for. He'd thought she'd found that. He'd thought Derek was that person. He'd been so catastrophically wrong. The scandal broke on a Tuesday. Abel had chosen his outlets carefully. Reputable journalists, news organizations that valued thorough investigation. He'd provided them with everything: documented evidence, witness testimonies, expert analysis of the abuse patterns. The story went national within hours. The Saint and the Secret: how Derek Ashford's double life may have led to wife's death. The medical community reacted with shock. The charity board launched an investigation. Derek's carefully constructed image crumbled in real time across social media. Derek's attorney released a statement denying everything, calling it a witch hunt by a jealous ex-boyfriend. Abel's legal team responded with a 100-page document of evidence and a libel lawsuit. The court of public opinion was swift and merciless. His TED Talk was removed. His charity was dissolved. Medical licensing boards in 3 states opened investigations. Abel watched from his hotel room, feeling hollow. This wasn't victory. Kate was still gone. But at least now people knew. At least now she wouldn't be remembered as just the beloved wife of a great man. Her suffering mattered. Her truth mattered. He'd given her that, at least. 2 weeks after the story broke, Abel returned to the cemetery. It was early morning, the grass heavy with dew. He'd had flowers delivered every day since the funeral. White roses, her favorite. He knelt beside her grave, his hand resting on the cold marble. "I fought for you," he whispered. "I know it doesn't bring you back. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I couldn't let him get away with it. I couldn't let people think you just gave up." His voice cracked. "You were the strongest person I ever knew, Kate. And he broke you. And I wasn't here to—" "Abel?" The voice was so familiar it stopped his heart. He turned slowly, certain he was hallucinating. Grief-induced psychosis. A breakdown finally arriving after weeks of stress. But she was there. Kate stood 10 feet away, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair shorter than he remembered, but her eyes— God, her eyes, exactly as they'd haunted his dreams for 8 years. She was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "You're dead," he breathed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I had to. I couldn't." Abel was on his feet, moving toward her, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. She didn't disappear. She was solid, real, crying as hard as he was. How? It was all he could manage. Kate wrapped her arms around herself, looking fragile in a way that made his chest ache. The blood pressure medication stopped working. I was in the hospital every other week. The doctor said if I didn't reduce my stress, I'd have a stroke before I was 40. She laughed bitterly. I tried to leave. I packed bags, but Derek would find them. He'd cry, promise to change, remind me what divorce would do to his career, his reputation. Tell me I was being dramatic, that I was making problems where there were none. Kate, I was so tired, Abel. So tired of being afraid in my own home, of walking on eggshells, of wondering what I'd done wrong every time he looked at me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I stopped wanting to wake up. And that's when I knew I had to disappear. She'd planned it carefully. A friend from nursing school had moved to New Zealand, had offered sanctuary without questions. Kate had saved money in secret, created documents, timed it for when Derek would be traveling. I staged it to look like I'd gone for a walk and collapsed, she said. My friend's brother is a paramedic. He helped. Made sure I was pronounced dead before Derek got there. A closed casket burial. You've been in New Zealand. She nodded. I got a job at a small clinic. Changed my name. Started over. Fresh tears fell. I thought I'd never come back. I thought I'd just be gone. Let everyone remember the Kate who was kind and gave and smiled. What changed? The news, she breathed. It reached me 2 days ago. Someone sent me a link. And when I read what you'd done, what you'd uncovered, she pressed her hands to her mouth, overcome. I couldn't believe it. That someone had fought for me. That someone had seen what he'd done. Abel closed the distance between them, his heart hammering. I should have fought for you 8 years ago. I should have stayed. I should have. You asked me to come with you, Kate interrupted. I said no. I chose him. You couldn't have known. I knew you, Abel said fiercely. I knew you better than anyone, and I let you go. I told myself it was noble, that I was doing the right thing. His voice broke. I regret it every day. Every single day, Kate. She reached up tentatively, touching his face the way she had that last time. Her fingers were cold, real. I saw you, she whispered. At the wake. You came. I had to. I needed to. He couldn't finish. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear again, feeling her shake with sobs against his chest. They stood like that, clinging to each other beside her own grave, mourning the years they'd lost and the pain she'd endured, and the impossible miracle of this moment. They had so much to talk about, so many years to account for. But for now, Abel just held her, breathing in the reality of her, thanking every god he'd never believed in for this impossible second chance. Kate was alive. Kate was here. And this time, he would never let her go. Kate stayed at Abel's hotel that night, at the suite next to his. He ordered room service neither of them touched, and they talked until dawn, filling in the gaps of 8 years. He told her about Singapore, about the emptiness of success, about the women he'd dated who weren't her, the deals that didn't matter, the nights he'd stood on his balcony and wondered if she was happy. She told him about New Zealand, about the relief of being invisible, about the guilt that ate at her, for deceiving everyone, for the pain her death had caused her friends and family. "My parents," she whispered, and her face crumpled. "They think they buried their daughter." "We'll tell them," Abel said firmly. "When you're ready. We'll fix this." But fixing it proved complicated. The story of Kate's survival leaked within 36 hours. Later, they'd learn it was Lydia Grant who'd discovered the truth. Or rather, her hired investigator, tasked with finding leverage against Abel's crusade against Derek. The reporters descended like vultures. They caught Kate leaving the hotel, surrounded her in the lobby. Cameras flashing, questions shouted. "Mrs. Ashford, how long were you in hiding? Did you know about the investigation into your husband? Was this an insurance fraud scheme? Are you and Abel Thornton romantically involved?" Kate froze, eyes wide with panic. Abel pushed through to her, his security team trying to clear a path. But the crush of bodies was suffocating. "Mrs. Ashford, is it true you faked your death to frame your husband? How much is Abel Thornton paying you? What do you say to people who attended your funeral?" Kate's breathing was coming too fast. Abel saw the color drain from her face, saw her sway. "Back up," he roared, putting himself between her and the cameras. "Get back." But they pressed closer, microphones thrust forward, the questions becoming crueler. "Did you know your husband was sleeping with Lydia Grant while you were allegedly dead?" Kate made a small, wounded sound. Her hand clutched Abel's arm, her nails digging in. "I can't," she gasped. "I can't breathe." "Kate." Abel gripped her shoulders, trying to ground her, but her eyes were unfocused. "Kate, look at me." Her lips were turning blue. Years later, the video would still circulate online. Kate collapsing in the hotel lobby, Abel catching her, his face twisted with terror. Security finally pushing the reporters back. The ambulance arriving. The paramedics taking her vitals in the lobby while cameras still flashed. Blood pressure 180/120. The hospital room was too quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Kate lay in the bed, sedated, an IV in her arm. Her face was peaceful now, but Abel couldn't forget the panic in her eyes. The way she'd gasped for air like she was drowning. He sat beside her, holding her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. He'd been there for 6 hours. He'd refused to leave. The doctor had been blunt, another episode like that, and she could have a stroke. Or worse. She needs complete rest and stress reduction. No more reporters. No more crowds. But how could they escape it? The story was everywhere now. Kate's miraculous return from the dead. Derek's fall from grace. The mysterious billionaire ex-boyfriend who'd uncovered it all. The media had turned it into a soap opera, and Kate was trapped at the center. Abel leaned his forehead against her hand. He'd done this. In trying to give her justice, he'd painted a target on her back. Lydia Grant had weaponized the press against her, turning Kate's survival into a scandal instead of a tragedy. "I'm sorry," he whispered. God, Kate, I'm so sorry. Her fingers twitched in his. He looked up to find her eyes open, hazy but focused on him. Hey, she breathed. Hey. He tried to smile, but his face wouldn't cooperate. You scared me. I scared myself. She looked at the monitors, the IV, and closed her eyes. This is why I left. I can't do this again, Abel. The stress, the pressure, the feeling like I'm suffocating. I know. I'm going to fix it. You can't fight the entire media. Watch me. Despite everything, she laughed. A small, fragile sound. Still trying to save the world? Just trying to save you. Her eyes opened again, and this time they were clearer. Sad, but clear. Maybe I don't need saving. Maybe I just need to disappear again. No. The word came out sharper than he intended. Abel took a breath, softened his voice. No more running. No more hiding. We face this together. Together? He stood, still holding her hand, and leaned over the bed rail. His free hand cupped her cheek, gentle despite the fierce protectiveness burning through him. I let you go once, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I told myself it was the right thing, that you'd be better off. And look what happened. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. I won't make that mistake again. Abel, I love you. The words fell between them, simple and devastating. I've loved you for 8 years. Through everything. And I know the timing is terrible. And you've been through hell. And you probably need time and space and… Abel, Kate interrupted, her own hand coming up to cover his. Shut up. He stopped, his heart pounding. I love you too, she whispered. It took me less than a year after I married Derek to know I should have followed you. You were always in my mind, in my dreams. Tears slipped down her temples. Why do you think I came back when I heard what you'd done? I could have stayed gone. Could have stayed safe in Auckland. Then why? Because you fought for me, she said simply. I realized that if you could be that brave, maybe I could be too. Abel kissed her then, careful of the IV, mindful of her fragility. It was soft and salt-sweet with tears, and it felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. When they broke apart, Kate was smiling. The first real smile he'd seen since she'd appeared at the cemetery. So what now? She asked. Now? Abel sat back down, but kept her hand in both of his. Now we get you better. We deal with the media circus. We figure out how to build a life that doesn't kill you from stress. That's a tall order. I'm a billionaire, remember? Tall orders are kind of my thing. He tried for levity, but his next words came out serious. I'll buy you an island, if that's what it takes. Somewhere remote where reporters can't find you. I don't need an island. A small country? She laughed, and the sound made his chest ache. I just need time. And maybe you. You have me, Abel said. For as long as you want me. Kate's smile turned mischievous despite her exhaustion. What if that's forever? Then I guess I'm stuck with you. The monitor beeped steadily. Kate's blood pressure was coming down. Color was returning to her face. For now, this was enough. Kate alive, Kate here, Kate holding his hand like she had no intention of letting go. 3 days later, Kate was stable enough to be discharged. Abel had arranged everything. A private exit through the hospital's service entrance. A car with tinted windows. Security that would make the Secret Service jealous. They went to his penthouse, a stunning space overlooking Elliott Bay that had been his refuge since returning to Seattle. Kate stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the water. It's beautiful, she said softly. Abel came up behind her, not touching but close. It's empty. She turned to look at him. What? I bought it 8 years ago, thinking you might actually say yes. He smiled sadly. Yes to what? Kate was confused. I had a ring in my pocket when you told me about Derek. Abel. I was going to propose to you that day. The words fell between them like stones into still water. That last day we met. I had the ring in my pocket the entire time. Kate's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Abel crossed to his bedroom, opened a drawer in his nightstand, and pulled out a small velvet box that had traveled with him to every city, every country, every lonely hotel room for 8 years. He came back to her, opened it with trembling hands. The diamond caught the light. Simple, elegant, timeless. Oh God, Kate whispered, reaching for him. Abel, I didn't know. How could you? He took her hands in his, the ring box still between them. I never told you, never fought for you. I just let you go because I thought that's what you wanted, that Derek could give you everything I couldn't. His jaw clenched. I've carried this ring around the world for 8 years, Kate. Every city felt empty. Every achievement felt hollow. Because none of it mattered without you. Kate was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I thought your work mattered more than I did. That's why I said yes to Derek. Because he promised to be there, and I was so afraid of not being enough for the man I really loved. She touched the ring with shaking fingers. I ruined everything. I ruined us. No. Abel cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Derek ruined you. My cowardice ruined us. But you survived. You're here. And that ring has been waiting 8 years for the right moment. His voice dropped to a whisper. Just like I have. Just like I always will be. Waiting for you, Kate. Only you. Forever you. She kissed him then. Desperately, the ring box crushed between them, both of them crying and holding on like they could rewrite the past through sheer force of love. When they broke apart, Kate pressed her forehead to his. I love you, she breathed. I've loved you for 10 years, through everything. And I'm so sorry I was too scared to choose you when it mattered. You're choosing me now, Abel said fiercely. That's all that matters. You're here now. They held each other as the sun set over the water, in the penthouse he'd bought with a ring in his pocket, and a hope of forever. Both of them finally home. 6 months after Kate's return from the dead, on a crisp October evening, Abel took her to Discovery Park. They walked the loop trail as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Kate's blood pressure had been stable for 3 months, a remarkable progress. The legal battles with Derek were mostly over. He'd been stripped of his medical license, forced to resign from his charitable foundation, and was facing fraud charges that would likely send him to prison. Lydia Grant had disappeared from public view after her role in the reporter ambush came to light. The world had moved on. But Abel and Kate were still here, still walking side by side, still finding their way back to each other. I used to come here sometimes, Kate said, looking out at the Sound. When things got bad with Derek, I'd walk for hours, trying to clear my head. And now? She stopped walking, turned to face him. The sunset painted her in gold, and Abel's breath caught. She was so beautiful it hurt. Now I feel free, Kate said softly. For the first time in years. Maybe ever. Abel's heart was pounding. He'd been wanting to ask for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Maybe there was no right moment. Maybe he should wait longer. Give her more time. But she was smiling at him, and the light was perfect, and he'd wasted too much of his life already. Kate, he said, and his voice came out rough. Abel? He took both her hands in his, and he could feel them trembling. Or maybe that was him. Let's get married, he laughed shakily. 8 years ago, I let you go. I told myself it was noble, that you'd be better off without me. I was an idiot. Abel. I thought if I built something big enough, achieved something impressive enough, the emptiness would go away. But it never did. Because you weren't there. Tears were building in Kate's eyes. He released one of her hands to reach into his pocket and dropped to one knee on the forest path. It was that same ring 8 years ago. Kate's free hand flew to her mouth. So I'm asking now, Kate Bennett, will you marry me? The tears spilled over, running down her cheeks. For a long moment, she just stared at him, and Abel's heart stuttered. Then she was pulling him up, throwing her arms around his neck, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, she said against his shoulder. Yes, yes, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly. They stood there as the sun finished setting, holding each other, and Abel thought about the grave he'd cried at 6 months ago. About the regret that had consumed him, the guilt over leaving her. But Kate wasn't in that grave. She was here, alive in his arms. And somehow, impossibly, they'd been given another chance. The past couldn't be changed. Kate had suffered in ways he couldn't undo, and he'd carry that knowledge forever. But she was here now, alive and warm in his arms, wearing his ring, choosing him the way he'd always dreamed she would. The grave and evergreen memorial stood empty, a monument to the woman who'd had to die to save herself. But the real Kate, his Kate, was breathing, laughing, healing, building a new life from the ashes of the old one. And this time, Abel would be there for every moment, making sure she never doubted, never feared, never felt alone again, because Kate was his home, and he was finally home too.